Here I am at the beautiful Langen Hilton, where my friend Tony Marshall has agreed to let me come here to give you a cookery demonstration, because I travel around the country and everybody's always asking me, how do you season the wok and what can I do with it? And customers ask, you know, what does seasoning mean? And so here I am to show you how to do all that. Did you know that cooking and food is one of the most important things for Chinese? In fact, we often talk about what we eat, what we like to eat, and what we even dream about eating. And did you know that Chinese cooking is one of the healthiest cuisines in the world? I mean, recent studies have shown that the Chinese diet is by far one of the best anywhere. And the thing is, with Chinese cooking, it's so easy to make this type of food because it's easy, quick, and it's also very, very economical. And I'd love to show you how to make quick and easy dishes. When you first get your wok, it's going to look like this, nice and shiny. And what you want to do with it is to take it home and to scrub it out thoroughly, put a little bit of oil over the wok like this, any type of cookery oil except olive oil, and rub it all over on the sides and put it on the heat for about 20 minutes. And what will happen is, as you start cooking, it will eventually get nice and dark like this. Now, this is not rust. This is just seasoning, which is coating the sides of the wok, preventing it from sticking. Now, and once you have the wok like this, as you begin to cook, it will get darker and darker, and this is what you want your wok to look like. Nice and black like this. This belongs to my good friend Sue, and she uses it every single day, and this is what it should look like. Of course, it's not going to win any beauty contests, but it's a very good utensil. Now, how to care for the wok? Well, all you simply have to do is never ever scrub it again. Just wash it in warm water, and then dry it, and then put it away. And if it should rust for any reason, you can scrub it out. But the thing is, this is perfectly fine. And if you're worried about germs, anything that survives this heat deserves to live anyway. Now I'm going to show you how to do an easy beef and tomato dish. Now, what you want to do is take a piece of meat. You can use beef or pork or lamb, whatever you want. And here I'm cutting it with a cleaver. And to hold the cleaver is to hold it on one side like this and grip it on the other side so that you are actually in control of it. And curl your fingers in slightly so that it keeps you away from the sharp edges. And you just take the meat and just slice it into chunks like this. And this is what's so beautiful about the cleaver. You just scoop everything up and you just put that in the bowl. And now I'm going to cut out some of these wonderful looking tomatoes. This is yellow tomatoes, which are really nice that you can find sometime, and some red tomatoes. This is also what's so nice about Chinese cooking. It's so healthy and colorful. And put that in a bowl. And let me show you a very nice trick with peppers. What you do is you take the cleaver and you just cut that at the end like this. Just turn it over and cut this at the other end so that the core is cut. And cut that sort of in the middle. And then parallel with the board, you see, you just core the center of the pepper. And you can see how versatile it is, the cleaver, to do that. And you just bend the core as I'm doing there. And you just take that, stack that up a little bit. And you simply cut that into very, very nice, colorful slices. This is the beauty about the cleaver, is that you don't have to change hands as you're cutting, and every bit of this is used. And it also shows you how versatile and economical Chinese cooking is. And I see we have some fresh onions that are also very nice and aromatic for this dish. So I want to use that. And here's a nice little trick with the cleaver, which shows you also the other use of the cleaver, is to take some garlic and you just take it with the side of the cleaver and just flatten it as I'm doing here. And of course, this is a good thing to do if you've had a hard day at the office or working. And you just smash that like this and quickly chop that, and we're all ready, as you can see how quick it is to prepare this dish. Now, before we start actually cooking, I'm just going to simply marinate the beef in a little bit of light soy sauce, and that's very easy. A little bit of sesame oil and a little bit of rice wine. you can use dry sherry if you can't get rice wine, and a little bit of corn flour. You want to take this and mix this together. You can use your hands. And now we're all ready to make our dish. Now we're ready to do some cooking. Now what you have to do is make sure the wok is very, very hot before you actually start cooking, and then add a little bit of oil. Here I'm using some groundnut or peanut oil, and get it very, very hot. Don't worry about the heat. The hotter it is, the better, because that seals in all the flavors. Add the meat, as I'm doing here. As you can hear it sizzle, that's very, very important. If it doesn't sizzle, that means your wok is not hot enough. One of the key things about Chinese cooking, which a lot of people make the mistake of, is they don't get the wok hot enough. And that's very, very important. You must get it very, very hot. Now, as you can see, it's cooking very, very rapidly. And I'm using these utensils, these tools, part of the tool set. It's important because it keeps you away from the hot heat. And that's also what the handle does too. It keeps you away from the hot heat, which is necessary for good Chinese cooking. And of course, when it's very, very hot like that, it's very healthy because the oil doesn't seep into the food. And what you want to do is simply brown the meat, and that seals it off, as you can see here. It's very, very nice. Now the meat is partially cooked, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain the meat off. And this is also very important because most of the oil will be drained off. And don't worry about little bits that stick in there. In fact, that's very good. I'm just leaving about a teaspoon of oil, and that's very, very little oil. And adding some of this garlic and onions that I've chopped up previously. Now, as you can see, the key mistake here is that it doesn't have a lot of oil. And one of the big problems that a lot of people make is they start adding more oil because they're a little bit panicky that this will start burning. Well, never add oil. What you want to do is stir fry that a little bit. If it starts getting too dry, just simply add a little bit of water to keep it nice and moist like that. And now we're going to take some of the peppers and scoop that in like that. And continue to cook that over very high heat. Now, don't cover this, because if you cover it, what will happen is all the vegetables will steam and get very soggy. And what you want to do is you want to just cook this, and you can watch it because everything is going so rapidly. And that's also the beauty of Chinese cooking, that is so quick and easy and rapid. And in fact, you could put together a nutritious meal for yourself or your friends or your family in just literally minutes. Now, as we're cooking this, this is almost done here. At this point, I take all the beef, which is drained. As you can see, all the excess oil is here and not in the meat. It's been drained off into the bowl. Just take that, mix that together, and finally adding our tomatoes, which are really quite also very beautiful. And don't forget, tomatoes I'm adding at the very last moment because it really doesn't need that much cooking. Look how beautiful that looks. God, that looks very luscious. Finishing that off with just a little bit of oyster sauce. And this is a delicious sauce that you can buy in any, most supermarkets now, or in some of your Chinese specialty stores. And they add a wonderful savory flavor to this dish. And you can see how that is. Just take that and mix that together. And what makes this kind of cooking so healthy is the portion of vegetables to me is almost 3-to-1. And in fact, that has a lot of lessons for all of us. Now, I'm simply going to serve that up right away. As you can see how beautiful and healthy that looks. And you can serve this with rice, you can serve this with a salad, for example, and you will have a delicious meal. This is so delicious. Now I'm going to show you how to make a very easy, spicy vegetable stir-fry dish. And again, you must get the wok very, very hot, and this is really important. And just a little bit of oil. As you can see, it's slightly smoking like this, but that's all right because that tells you that the wok is hot enough for you to stir fry in. I'm going to quickly flavor that with a little bit of garlic and ginger and a few bits of onions that I have left. Stir fry that very, very quickly. And some baby corn, which is lovely, and some asparagus. Now, as you can see, I have very, very little oil in here. Now, what shall I do? Shall I add more oil? I'm adding a little bit of salt, by the way, just to give it a bit of taste. Add a little bit of water rather than adding any more oil, and that's very, very important. Now, as you can see, I've added all the hard vegetables first. This is very important when you're stir-frying vegetables, because what people often do is they bung everything in, and they wonder why it comes out a soggy mess. Well, the thing is, you must cook things that are hard first without little moisture. Now, as you can see, these peppers are a little bit not as hard as the corn or the asparagus, so they should come in after this has cooked a little bit. And so give it about a few minutes or so, and when that's nice and tender, what you simply do is then add the peppers, and this gives it a wonderful, nice color, and continue to cook that over a very, very high heat. Now, one of the questions people ask me when they're stir-frying vegetables, how do you know when the vegetables are done? Well, what you simply do is take a sharp little knife like this. This is a very good knife. And you poke it in. If it goes in very easily, then you know the vegetables are done. If it meets some resistance, as it does now, that means the vegetable is raw and it needs a little bit more cooking. So continue to cook that over a very, very high heat. And here, at the very end, I'm going to add a little bit of these mange-tout, or sometimes they're also called snow peas. And what you simply do is these are very, very tender and they cook very quickly, so logic tells me to add them at the very end. So add a few of those, and again, stir-fry that around very, very quickly. Now, what happens if you don't, you find that this is drying out, and in fact, as you look at the wok, there's juices that are coming from the vegetables, and this is what you want. By the way, you notice that I'm, again, not covering the wok, because when you're cooking vegetables, you don't want to overcover the wok, because if you do that, it will steam and become very, very soggy. As you can see how beautiful this is looking, it's all glistening and has a wonderful color to it. And I'm going to finish that off with just a little bit of this nice, wonderful chili bean sauce, which you can also buy. If you don't like things very spicy, you don't have to add that. And don't forget, when you're cooking with anything spicy like this, always add a little bit of sugar. And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of sugar, because what that does is it balances the spiciness of the chili bean sauce. That looks very, very good. I'm just going to finish that off with a touch of this rice wine. Then I'll just give it that je ne sais quoi. And if you like, you can also add a little bit of sesame oil. That adds a very nice toastiness, nuttiness flavor to the vegetables. Look at how beautiful this looks. You'd be proud to serve that to any of your friends or your family. And in fact, not only does it look beautiful, it actually tastes as good as it looks, and it's also extremely healthy for you. And look at that. That's all nice. The vegetables are thoroughly cooked. Really, really beautiful. And full of flavor. And here you have a wonderful stir-fry spicy vegetable dish that's easily made in the wok. Now I'm going to show you how we can whip up a quick omelet even in the wok. What you want to do is just take some eggs and just sort of lightly beat them, and you can use this very, very long cooking chopsticks. And again, make sure your wok is very, very hot. And also, this is a good opportunity for me to show you what happens when the wok has been seasoned. You just take a little bit of oil, you don't need very much, and swirl it all around like this. And just because it is smoking like this, don't worry. You can add a little bit of salt, and as you can see, nothing is sticking to this. I'll show you how that is. Can you see that? In fact, it looks like one of these very non-stick surface, because the wok has been seasoned properly and because I heated it up properly before I added the oil, and that's very, very important. As you can see how that moves. Can you see that? That's absolutely wonderful. And in fact, I have a problem in just keeping it still because it's just moving so much. Now, what we want to do is just cook this a little bit. And as you can see, you can actually cook anything that you use a pan for, you can use with a wok. And again, because it's been seasoned, I need very, very little oil. And if I'm going to do an omelet like this, what I simply do is just take it. You can just turn it over like this, as I'm doing. And look at that. None of it is sticking. And just very, very quickly put that onto a plate, and there you have it. And look how beautiful that is. And there we have an omelet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this omelet, chop it up, and use it for one of my favorite dishes, which is fried rice. Now I'm going to make one of everybody's favorite dishes, which is fried rice. Everybody asks me how to make it and what is the best way. Well, number one is, again, you have to make sure your wok is very, very hot before you start. Get it very, very hot. Just add a little bit of oil. You don't need a lot of oil. Just about 2 teaspoons or so. And swirl that all around the wok and get it very, very hot. You can add a little bit of salt to this if you like. And the important thing is to make sure you have rice that is cooked, long grain white rice that is cooked. Make sure it's very hot and sizzling, as I have here. And just put that into the wok and get it very, very hot. As you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm heating up the rice again. And it's important. Why should the rice be cooked? Well, if it's cooked beforehand, that means it won't stick to the side of the wok. And also, why does it have to be cold? Well, if it's warm, what will happen is the rice is still sort of starchy. And that's what makes the rice sticks to the wok. And also, of course, if your wok is hot enough, as we have here, it doesn't stick at all. Now, just heat up the rice until it's very, very hot. Now, as you can see, again, I am not using a lid for this. Now, what is the lid used for? Well, often people ask me that. Well, if you're stewing something or you're cooking something that requires you to keep in the heat, then you use the lid. In other words, if you're even making something like chili con carne or whatever that requires a lot of stewing time, then you use the lid. Now, you want to cook that a little bit. You can add anything that you want to this. What I love about fried rice is I can take all the leftovers from my fridge and just throw it all in here and have a fabulous dish. I'm adding some just cut peppers because I have that in my fridge. A little bit of ham. You can just, if you want to make this vegetarian, you can just leave the ham out. Adding some spring onions because that's very, very nice and it'll add a nice taste to this. And I have an omelet which I have cooked before, and I'm just taking that and throwing that in here because it adds color and it also is very, very nice for the rice. Now, you just take that and continue to cook that until it's all heated through. As you can see, I'm using, again, the utensils by pressing this down a little bit to get it heated, and then I'm taking it and then taking it to the side and pulling it over. And that's the important part of doing fried rice. As you can see, none of it is sticking. As you can see, it's not sticking at all to either the side. Now, what happens if your wok should stick? Well, do you scrub it? No, what you do is soak it in some warm water and then wash it out with a soft sponge. Now, one of the best ways to store a wok, I think, if you're not going to use it, you should use it every day, but if you don't use it every day, you simply put a little bit of cookery oil over it and then put it in a plastic bag and store it away that way. And that will be a good way to maintain your wok. Now, as you can see, the fried rice is done. And what I like to do is I don't like to put soy sauce on my fried rice because the traditional Chinese way does not require soy sauce because it's too salty then. This is quite beautiful. And now we're ready to serve this up. If you like, you can add maybe a touch or two of sesame oil. That gives it a nice nutty, toasty flavor. Look how beautiful this looks. Wow, we're all ready for our delicious meal. And everything done in the wok, so versatile and easy. And look at that, that's very, very nice. Very little oil, so it's very healthy for you. And it also, the big bonus is the whole thing tastes so good. I want to thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you've learned a few secrets and hints about Chinese cooking and that you will share these with your customers. And I really want to thank you for selling the wok and sharing all this information with your customer. And I hope to see you soon.